trauma and how it affects men's intimate relationships. Obviously, this is for men. It's also for women who are concerned about, it could be the relationship that they are in, could be a relationship of someone they know. But at the end of the day, it's for people that are having some type of difficulty with emotional or physical intimacy or vulnerability in a romantic partnership, as well as vulnerability in platonic or like familial or coworker relationships. This is not just for the physical component that I'm talking about here tonight. That is probably where I'm going to spend most of my time. But for anyone out there that has felt the social anxiety of being around people they're not familiar with, or people especially that they are trying to get close to and connect with, if you're feeling your nervous system acting up, you're having a difficult time staying focused because you're concerned about how they may be viewing you, etc. If you're experiencing anxiety with that or difficulty in opening up, that is a perfect example of how trauma affects not just the physical intimacy, but the intimacies of intellectual, emotional variance as well. So real quick, let's start by defining trauma. Trauma is the response to a deeply distressing and disturbing event that overwhelms one's ability to cope. This can cause feelings of helplessness. It can diminish your confidence, your sense of self. There's really like a whole range of emotions and experiences that you may be missing out on or not as able to be present to because of something that was traumatic to you. And what is traumatic to one person is completely different to what might be traumatic to somebody else. So I encourage you guys to kind of experience this, or just think about this conversation and take a moment and maybe not active listen the whole time, but also visualize, in what relationships am I struggling to get closer? Is this something that may not be logical? Is this something that my intuition is telling me? Could my intuition be wrong? Could I just be operating from a fear-based place of connecting with this person intellectually, emotionally, or physically? But I want to go ahead and dive in on the physical dysfunction that can happen to men because of trauma and the responses to trauma. So what is dysfunction? So here are 4 different types that we've all heard about. We all joked about them, snickered, that would never happen to us, in all different types of like sex ed classes. But it's not just impotence or your stuff not lighting up when you're with somebody that you want to be with. It's also not being able to finish the process or finishing too early, as well as just not even being interested in connecting physically with your partner. A lot of people really don't understand that sometimes your lack of physical interest in either someone else, or if you're taking it, if you're kind of looking at it from their perspective, someone's lack of interest in you may not be about you at all. It may not be about the physical appearance. The physical attraction may be there. However, there are some psychological reasons that you don't feel safe in that environment. And when we don't feel safe, we stay in that fight or flight situation. We're not supposed to be in a fight or flight situation when we are like deeply physically connecting with somebody. So go ahead and exit out of that, Chris.
Cool.
Just so everybody knows, I have a couple different websites that I'm going to add here because I want you guys to have like some solid reading content and resources to look into this further. I don't have time to go into it all tonight. But here's what I want to get to. We don't need to pull up the website, but I'm going to have it included in the comments, where there's an article that basically summarizes into pills may not be the solution for all of the dysfunction that you, or some of the dysfunction that you're feeling in your life, whether it's as a single person, in casual relationships, or if it's in a monogamous thing or a romantic thing. At the end of the day, just because your body isn't responding the way you want it to doesn't mean it's a physical issue. If you are, like I said earlier, if you're afraid to kind of go there, if something happened to you in the past, or if you have just fears or false expectations from society or porn, which I would highly recommend every man, potentially every woman out there, cease or reduce heavily your relationship with porn if you are having problems with anything around this environment. It is not realistic, and it is not really why we are supposed to be here or how our bodies function. By looking at a screen, if you have yourself ready to go looking at a screen, you may feel a completely different sensation, have false expectations in the real thing. So a pill is not always the solution. And And many times it may also indicate something wrong with the relationship. And that's brought up in one of the websites I'll have later is going into that. So there are ways to overcome the psychological effects of some type of erectile dysfunction. Sometimes friends, mentors, partners can be that safe container for you. But if you don't feel safe and you want to talk to somebody, find a professional. So that way you're not bouncing around all these kinds of shames and ideas about how this one small piece of your life defines you as a man or as a woman. Second piece is trust your partner. A lot of times this stuff doesn't work because there may be some type of trust issues. There may be an emotional disconnect. There's guided imagery. And then there's meditation. Who would have thought? I have so many people come to me and say, I don't know how to meditate. I don't like it. The voices are too loud, or I get bored. But they have so many different psychological things that numerous resources reference meditation can help you with. What is meditation to me in this instance? Becoming present to the moment, aware of your thoughts. Through meditation, you can figure out some of the psychological blocks that you have in connecting with someone in, like I said earlier, intellectual, emotional, or physical ways. So that's some of the stuff you can do. Anyone here is free to reach out to me if you're watching this. If this is something that you struggle with. I had to deal with this for 6 years of my life, college into my early 20s. It's not fun. I thought a pill would be the solution. It was not. That was bullshit from marketing. And there's ways to get out of it.
Welcome to the Good Life.
Episode 69 of The Good Life.
Tonight we're going to be going over how trauma affects men's intimate relationships. Trauma is the response to a deeply distressing and disturbing event that overwhelms one's ability to cope. What is traumatic to one person is completely different to what might be traumatic to somebody else.
Men having these types of issues comes with shame, comes with guilt, right? Comes with a lot of the things that take you away from living the good life.
What you're doing here is you're bringing different solutions to the table that doesn't involve Rex MD and Blue Chew and Roman and hymns.
Highly recommend every man cease or reduce heavily your relationship with porn if you are having problems with anything around this environment.
Give yourself a hug. Pat yourself on the back. It's all good.
There are ways to continue to get through it, get over it, but we have to bring awareness to it.
The peanut gallery that's constantly doing this. You're not doing it right. You're not enough. You're not da. What is wrong with you? Oh my gosh. In reality out here, maybe everything is fine.
Getting drunk to hook up. That is a great way to take yourself down a very slippery slope of substance dependency, different types of self-esteem things that may show up in a leadership position.
We might be talking about kind of like on a younger level, but I think this is very relevant to folks that have been in relationships for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years as well.
If you don't feel safe and you want to talk to somebody, find a professional. So that way you're not bouncing around all these kinds of shames and ideas about how this one small piece of your life defines you as a man or as a woman.